to the PC of the National Assembly. They do not belong to the Joint Select Committee meeting. So in that way, we can't consider them as a joint committee. That's my ruling. So we'll just put them aside and we'll consider them in our next meeting as the PC alone. Do you agree with me, honorable members?
Agree, Chairperson.
Thank you. My whip, how are you?
Chairperson.
Greetings, my chair. I'm well. How are you doing?
A little bit fine. I can't complain. What's happening is according to God's will. We can't change it. We must just accept.
That's fine.
Who's leading us? Where is King? and his co-secretary.
I'm here, Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm here also.
I can see you. Are we forming a quorum, King? Do we form a quorum?
I was still checking on the side whether all members in.
Okay, if you can do so.
On the NCRP side, Chair, the NCRP committee is creating.
Okay, I believe we are forming a quorum. We may proceed with our meeting. Do we have apologies? Honorable members, you are warmly welcome into this joint select committee meeting. Let me appreciate my leaders from the NCOP. We know that you have a big party. You are trying your best that this committee should continue at all costs. So we really appreciate that. Apologies, roll call and apologies. Can we have a sense of who's in and who's not, and also those who have apologized? Over to you, King, and your colleague. Anyone can start. Ladies first.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Present, we've got Honourable Khai, as you know, Honourable Moimang, Honourable Lansman, Honourable Lunt, Honourable Broteseth, Honourable Dango, Honourable Matavula, and then we've got an apology from Honourable Mamarihani.
Thank you. King.
Chairperson, thank you, Chairperson. On my side so far, I've got Honorable you first, Chairperson. Secondly, I've got Honorable Jacobs. I've got Honorable Tomelang. I've got Honorable Kruger. So I haven't received so far any apology, but I'm still checking whether the members are still joining in.
Honorable Hendrik here?
Yes,
Okay.
I think.
Okay. You will inform us in due course, but we really appreciate that we are really forming a quorum. Any apology, King?
Honorable Chair, I'm around.
Okay, thank you, DM.
Okay.
King, any apology?
So far, Chairperson, I haven't received any apology. It's only the one from the Office of the Minister.
Chairperson, sorry, I just saw a message now from Honourable Lunt indicating that the apology from Honourable Boshoff, she got robbed earlier today and is dealing with that, so she submitted an apology for our meeting today.
Okay, mine, I have got an apology from Honourable Lorraine Luvengo. She's not feeling well. Looking. So,
Chairperson, Honorable Mweni has just joined. Then I'll request him to switch off his mic.
Okay, can you do so, host? Switch off your mic. Its background is a little bit disturbing, but thanks for joining us. Honorable members, as I have indicated that I will hand over to my co-chair to run this session. I'm now inviting him to take over. Honorable Ash.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Again, I think on behalf of both committees, we would like to express our condolences to you and your family during this difficult period. We trust that God will give you strength and comfort. You are and your family in our prayers. Thank you very much. Honorable members, let me also take this opportunity to welcome all honorable members from both committees, the Portfolio Committee on Small Business Development, the members of the Select Committee on Trade, Industry, Small Business Development, Tourism, Employment and Labor. Let me also take this opportunity to welcome and appreciate the attendance of Deputy Minister Makapa. Thank you very much, Makapa, and you're welcome. We also like to appreciate the attendance of our staff from both committees, the parliamentary staff, and the guests as well, and the media. Honorable members, the meeting basically is about updating us on the interventions that are employed by the Department of Small Businesses, the measures that they are taking on the effects of COVID-19 on small businesses. Remember, I think on the 28th of April, we had a briefing from the department on what is it that they are doing, the measures and interventions they are embarking upon to minimize the negative effects on small businesses. Today, we are getting an update as to what is it that the department is continuing to do in terms of the interventions. At this stage, then I will allow the Deputy Minister, Minister Makapa, to give us an overview, but also delegate the officials from the department to take us through the presentations. Makapa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. All the members of Parliament and both committees, that of a small business as well as the Select Committee from the NCOP. I appreciate the opportunity and I will waste no time. I heard you said, Chair, we are going to be businesslike. I would like to say you might have had disturbing calls that are complaining about what we promised as a department in terms of responding to the expectations that when government required the society to remain home and stop businesses, probably that there was assurance that at least they will be assisted to stand up on their feet again. Yes, there were all processes put in place, but I also would want to say to the members, funding for such claims, be it resilience funds that our minister spoke about, or be it assisting through UIF those employers who were no longer able to pay their employees due to the fact that they had gone down financially due to non-operation during the lockdown. There was also a promise that issues like your rentals will be paid for. But also the resilient fund was to ensure that you are able then to stagger going forward. There were also issues that Department of Small Business would support these activities through SIFA or through SIFA, and Seda would be assisting people to access whatever they require in terms of communicating with the department. Chairperson, I am very, very, very worried to say applications were overwhelming. And as they continue to come in, the funds were drying up. To date, this matter has been referred to National Treasury. And I am speaking from confidence that both the acting DG and the minister are engaging with National Treasury. And the processes, I can't go into details, but we have been promised that we will be given more funds in order to respond to the outstanding claims. These outstanding claims are legitimate and complying in the sense that those people claimed before the closing date that those individual SMMEs were qualifying at all costs. All documents that were required were submitted by them. But at the same time, there's this other opportunity which was not there before, that it was only those who had actually registered their employees with labor. But of late, even those who have employees that were not registered with the UIF can go there and apply. But I'll stop there because most of the details, because the report that is there now that is going to be presented, Chair, is inclusive of Seda, SIFA, as well as the department. That's how I understand it. And therefore, I think at the end of the day, I will avail myself to be able to put clarities or answer specific questions. Thank you very much. Once Seda has been able to make the presentation. Thank you for the time. Sorry for being a little bit long, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Makapa, for the opening remarks. Before I give to Seda, or is it Seda or SIFA? Or both? Okay. Let me just, I was not sure whether during the apologies I heard correctly. I had to check with the Committee Secretary, Madia, about Honorable Boshoff. That Honorable Lund indicated that she was this morning robbed and that she's attending to that situation. So I had to double check with her. She confirms that that's what she was conveying to the meeting. I just want on behalf of the two committee to express that with her, also during this this period. We hope that everything will go well in her endeavors, but we'll conduct after the meeting. At this stage, then I'll allow the, I don't know whether it's Seda or SIFA or the department. Can I get clarity? Both of them. Can we start with SIFA? And both of you, you'll start now until 4 for 45 minutes presentation. Over to you. Thank you very much. If you can, is it? Oh, it's a acting DG. Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes.
All right. So,
No.
okay, you can go on with the acting DG.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair, honourable members. We decided to combine the presentation and have one presentation because we are all working together in delivering this intervention. So there will be one presentation and will save you time as well. King, I will project the presentation from my side. Chair, yes, this is the presentation that we are making today. This slide talks to the outline of the presentation, what we are going to cover. Because we are working as a portfolio, we have interventions that are administered through SIFA and interventions that are administered through Seda. And then we'll talk to the number of applications received, the status of the various interventions. And lastly, we'll also talk about, the lessons learned throughout this process, because that's the outline we got from the committee secretary. Chair, I'm not going to waste a lot of time on this one. It's where we are just indicating the type of interventions that we have, which is the SME debt relief, which the DM has spoken about. And then we have the business growth or resilience facility. I don't know what's going on. King, is there someone else sharing? Okay, Chair, I'll proceed. I hope King can assist us so that we don't get disturbed. I think one of the key issues here that we put as a lesson learned is the overwhelming number of applications. I think the DM has spoken about this issue, that SIFA did not have capacity to entertain the number of applications that we received. So it was a challenging time, but it took us some time to adjust in terms of our processes as well as our systems to be able to cover as much as we've been able to do. And we thought, Chair, we should also bring this into the portfolio committee and the standing committees or select committees attention, that we think it's critical for us to be able to insist on SMMEs registering their employees for UIF, because the amount of money that is required for salary support is too big. We were not expected to support employers to pay for their employees, and all these employees were accessing UIF support. Will not be having this huge challenge that we are having, because as we speak, we had run about over 5 billion in terms of the requests that we got for support. Then, Chair, on the Spaza shop support program, we were able to deliver this program, and we are still able to deliver it through effective public-private sector partnerships. We were able to bring commercial banks, given their reach, as well as the wholesalers who are also assisting us in terms of providing these goods and services to our Spaza shops owners. And given the target that we have, when we started the program, we requested the support of SALCA to assist our Spaza shops owners to go and register those who did not have permits at the time. So even the support from SALCA is really appreciated. This is the intervention. I'm not going to dwell on much on this, where through SIFA, all SIFA funded clients are given a payment holiday so that they could be able to survive this pandemic. We will closely monitor the implementation of this payment holiday and also assess the business performance in terms of turnover, employment, Also critically is the sustainability of SIFA, because it means when we give this payment holiday, SIFA will not be receiving the money it's supposed to receive back as loan repayments from these SMEs that are funded by the entity. And then we also have properties that are owned by SIFA, which are mostly industrial parks. We know that most of the tenants, even before the COVID, they were experiencing some cash flow challenges and rent payment challenges. And then the relief that was introduced is assisting them to survive this pandemic, because they're now able to cover other critical costs. Most of these properties, Chair, are in townships, and then we believe that the support given contributes to the creation of jobs and reduction of poverty. We're also ensuring that they follow the COVID-19 protocols, so that they also prevent the spreading of of this virus. Chair, Seda is also actively involved in the administration of the support, because we also saw this as an opportunity for us to start formalizing those businesses that are not formalized. Seda is also ensuring that those entities that are not able to do it by themselves, the registration, etc., are able to be assisted through this it's called e-services platform of CIPC. It's also enabled us as Seda to work virtually, and we've improved on that because mostly the interactions were personal between the business advisors with the SMMEs. Seda is actively involved in assisting the Spaza shops. Those who that we need to be registered, they assist them to register through the CIPC. We also appreciate, again, Chair, the support of some of the municipalities. Some are really providing outstanding service when it comes to supporting us in delivering the intervention, and some of the provinces, Chair, they were able to assist us in popularizing the incentives, as well as assisting us in finding out the wholesalers. We accommodate all the wholesalers so that they can be closer to our Spaza shops, and they don't have to travel long distances to get the goods that they are looking for. So Seda is actively involved in that aspect of ensuring the formalization of the Spaza shops. Also, the issue around the databases, Chair, is quite critical, because when we started asking some of the provinces whether they do have databases of the Spaza shops and informal businesses, it was a challenge for some. Some were able to provide us with that information, even though some of it was outdated, but this process has assisted us to have new database, and also aligning people with the relevant protocols and ensuring that all the businesses that are operational are registered with the municipalities. Those who did not renew their permits, they were able to go and renew their permits so that they operate legally. But there are also other interventions that we are introducing, which we'll talk in more detail later, in terms of the integration now of local suppliers with the wholesalers in those particular localities. Some of the work that we are also doing is to assist these SMMEs who are suppliers now, because what we insisted on when we interacted with the wholesalers is that they must ensure that they integrate our SMMEs into their value chain. So they need to buy goods from the local SMMEs that are producing those goods that are required by Spaza shops. So there are interventions that are introduced by Seda to make sure that they comply with the standards, because wholesalers are very strict. They are very clear that people need to be able to brand their goods properly. They need to be certified, these goods, because they can't sell goods that are not properly certified. The standards, the testing, and etc. etc. Seda is coming in that aspect and ensuring that our SMMEs provide goods that meets the standards. There were also some challenges around the costing, because most of the SMMEs, they were only selling goods informally. So they had some challenges because some of their goods were overpriced for wholesalers. So Seda is intervening in that aspect and assisting them with that intervention. The other initiative that we are still working on is that of getting unemployed graduates to continue assisting all the informal businesses so that they remain sustainable post the COVID period, and also assist them to grow and become biggest contributors when it comes to economic growth. In terms of the applications per province, these are the numbers in terms of where we got most of the applications. Obviously, it's always Gauteng that we had like 12,640 applications, and the incomplete ones 7,500. There we approved 529. But for Spaza shops, we have 183 applications. So I'm not going to go to each and every slide so that to save time, but that's the information that was requested by the committee for us to come and present so that they can see which provinces mostly applied and which ones did not apply that much. You will see that the smallest application we received are from Northern Cape, which is mostly informed by the fact that the population size is small, so they were unable to, they don't have biggest numbers when it comes to the number of enterprises that are operational. But there are some interventions on the Spaza shop intervention. I will talk to that later because Northern Cape is not doing that well. So we are talking to other stakeholders. Free State, for example, we are also talking to them because the numbers are still low. We had an interaction with them yesterday just to look at how we can improve in terms of the uptake of the programs from the province. Chair, out of the 1,500 applications that were approved, which will assist us to sustain 21,580 jobs, we are investing a total amount of 530 million. You will see again, given the number of applications that we received from Gauteng, we have 194 million going to Gauteng, followed by KZN with 97 million, and then it's Western Cape with 68 million. You'll see the lowest again, it's Northern Cape and Free State. Yes, those are the two lowest, but the lowest one is Free State in this respect. But we had an interaction with the province yesterday, especially on the Spaza shops. We agreed on the interventions that we need to introduce to make sure that they also come on board and really take those incentives that are offered through that particular program. And then this is a provincial spread in terms of the numbers. It's aligned to the previous slide. You'll see that Gauteng is 529 enterprises, and Northern Cape has 39, which is the lowest province. And then in terms of jobs, again, is Gauteng, which has 7,466 in terms of the number of jobs that will be maintained through this intervention. Chair, then this is the intervention that only affects CFA-funded clients, because we are aware that the commercial banks also introduced this intervention, assisting their clients to defer payments. So as at CFA, this is what we did. We postponed the payments of installments for 6 months, and the holiday is for both capital and interest. We also working on introducing debt restructuring and also providing additional funding for those who are seeking relief during this period. We are not introducing a uniform instrument, but the funding, it varies per entity given their cash flow needs. We are also ensuring that the debt repayments are captured to match the pattern of the cash flow. The additional funding will be provided at a prime less 5%. Currently, there are 219 clients in CFA direct lending book who will be eligible for this blanket payment period, and these clients have total outstanding loan balance of 335 million, and this will affect CFA's books. And then under CFA's wholesale lending, there are 4 intermediaries that requested payment holiday, and these 3 of these entities are based in Gauteng and 1 in Mpumalanga. Chair, in terms of the Spaza Shop Support Program, as of the 27th of May, we have received 2,246 applications. We've broken it down there in terms of gender. You will see that the majority, 1,049 or 1,197 is males, and then 1,049 is female. That the approval, we have 702, and then some declines because it's people who were not Spaza shops, most of them who applied, and others, it's people who were trying to apply for the second time under the same program. And then the referrals is those that we are referring to Seda to support so that they can come back and apply. And then in terms of the number of jobs that will be maintained through these 702 approvals is 2,927 jobs. Chair, we thought we should also bring this to the attention of the committee, that what we've already done, we looked at the Spaza shops that we have and the wholesalers, because we want to make sure that our Spaza shops don't travel long distances just to get the goods that they need to sell from their businesses. So we worked with the Department of Science and Innovation, as well as they utilize their agency, which is South African National Space Agency, just to map out the Spaza shops as well as the wholesalers, so that we can see in terms of proximity. We're also utilizing this information, Chair, to look at the clients or the SMMs that we've supported in those particular areas, because we want to make sure that there is this linkage in terms of our SMMEs getting easy access to support. So this COVID, even though it's a bad thing, but it gave us an opportunity to come up with these ideas so that we can be able to talk with authority when it comes to the support that we provide. So you'll see that once we provide support to a Spaza shop, we are able to link the Spaza shop to the nearest wholesaler, and that wholesaler will need to link the wholesaler to the SMME that will also supply to that wholesaler. So it's a long value chain, which is going to be beneficial for us going forward, working with the provinces, because as we are consolidating the database, we are making sure that we understand the needs of those SMMEs that are on those databases that we are having as a department, so that we can be able to assist them to access market opportunities, because we believe that it's not always government that is supposed to be providing market access opportunities through procurement. There is more money that is sitting with the private sector, and the public. Those are the people who really buy these goods on a daily basis. So it's critical for us to create that linkage between our Spaza shops as well as the SMMEs and the wholesalers, Chair. Some of the lessons that we learned, Chair, when we're trying to match our SMMEs with the wholesalers. So far, we have matched 13 SMMEs who are now suppliers of the wholesaler. It's something that we have never done before. And so we have 13 SMMEs that are now registered, and they are supplying particular wholesalers. It was a long process, Chair. Like we are saying below, that some of the SMEs are used to selling their product to the informal and markets such as community Spaza shops and general dealers and retail stores. The wholesale market is new for most of these SMMEs, and some of the lessons that we noted, they need to adjust from using a retail price to a wholesale price, because there were negotiations between these wholesalers and SMMEs, but we made it a point that the SMMEs are not disadvantaged and end up making a loss, because you know that the wholesalers most of the time they buy in bulk and they supply in bulk and they offer discounts. So it was critical for the SMMEs to know the pricing better. Also, the issues around better packaging, branding and labeling and barcoding, those are the things that we've learned in the past few days, and we are assisting SMMEs to get to that. Some of the SMMEs are now supplying because they've been assisted with that. And we are also saying, beyond just working with us on this wholesalers, we've encouraged SMMEs to be more aggressive when it comes to marketing their products. You must use the word of mouth, door-to-door selling, and also use the social media. They also need to line up reliable and affordable suppliers of the raw materials they use in the production. One of the examples is the SMEs that produce hand sanitizers. They ran out of alcohol component, and some experience unavailability of packaging components. And then these things, they make SMEs lose up opportunities of getting their products exposed to the markets. And then some of the interventions, Chair, that I briefly spoke about earlier, through Seda, we are saying we are not going to leave them on their own devices. We assist them in terms of pricing and costing, workshops on promotion and marketing of their products, business coaching and mentoring on business growth and upscaling of production, because the wholesalers, most of them, they tell you that they need so many goods supplied to them on a daily basis, and you find that these SMEs were just used to selling stock maybe on a weekly basis, but now they are expected to upscale their production. So what we have done, we've packaged their applications, and we'll be looking at assisting these to upscale their production, branding and product labeling, barcoding. These are very critical things that we are assisting, and some have already started. We even have pictures of some displaying their product in some of these wholesalers. Assistance with business planning to those seeking working capital, because the costs now have increased. Some will be employing more people because of the orders, or because of them having access to these wholesalers. We're saying through CIFA, we're providing support to this so that they can upscale their production. We're also, Chair, as a site, working with these to assist our SMEs to and encouraging them to use e-commerce platforms to popularize market and facilitate linkages, because the COVID-19 taught us a lot of lessons around being able to use. It encouraged us to use e-commerce platform to sell goods, because most of the time we're not able to move around. So we know that the COVID has changed the way we do business. So we are pushing for us. In fact, we have 2 platforms that we are working on that we will be utilizing to make sure that our SMMEs have access to the platforms to sell their goods and services without being physically doing those things. Chair, that's as far as I could go, but I have the chairpersons of the board of both entities here, and the CEOs. They are also part of the meeting. We will deal with the questions together. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Acting G. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister, and the chairpersons of the 2 entities and the CEO. This time, then, we're going to allow honorable members to ask questions. I have all the names of the members, so I will be calling the names randomly. I'm going to be a little bit generous today. Instead of 3 minutes, I'll give you 4 minutes. And also the department finished much earlier than the time that was allocated, but also within these 4 minutes, I'll be also flexible. I want to start with Honorable TK, because he normally has connection problems, so that he gets the opportunity to ask his questions. If then he has a problem later, then at least the department is able to respond, and the entities are able to respond to his question. And also, Honorable Matthew, I'm not sure if you still have that challenge of your microphone. If you still have that problem, you can then register your questions on the chat function. Can I start with Honorable TK? Honorable TK? Can we then go to Honorable Hendricks?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, we heard the Deputy Minister apologizing for taking a lot of time. She doesn't have to apologize. The presentation was very helpful. Honorable Chair, we have heard from Honorable Deputy Minister how the UIF went out of the way Shifa has gone out of the way. Seda has gone out of the way. Municipalities have gone out of their way to assist with the COVID challenges. Wholesalers are helping. But the Deputy Minister hasn't told us what the Department of Small Business is doing. And we budget nearly 2 billion for that department. The Deputy Minister must tell us if this is wasteful expenditure or did she forget to tell us because of time what the Department of Small Business is doing with regard to all our challenges. The second question, Mr. Chairman, is that we targeting 100,000 Spaza shops. The 183 on the table on the radar is just not enough. We somehow or another, we don't have structures and systems in place to attract them, to inform them of the assistance, because that will put a lot of pressure of the UIF and all the other government departments if these people can put bread on their own tables. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Hendricks. Honourable Langa, I see you are back. Can you take the floor? Can I ask the acting DG to take off the presentation? Thank you. Honourable Langa. Oh, he left again. Honourable Kruger, can you take the opportunity to ask questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the department for the informative presentation. I know the past 2 months were very busy in the 3 departments. But Chair, I want to make it very clear that my opinion of COVID-19 and small businesses is that the department failed small businesses. And it's more than 90% of small business weren't helped by the department. So we need to go back to the drawing board. And again, my opinion that the Department of Small Business failed our small businesses outside there. Then, Chairperson, I would like to make a proposal that the department is starting a suicide helpline with help from M students from universities to help small businesses that went under because of the COVID-19. I know of four small businesses owners that already committed suicide, and Elise Ace, also a small business owner, are on the edge of committing suicide. So there's a lot of small business owners that's in stress, and I want to ask the department and the minister, the Deputy Minister of Small Business, to introduce a suicide helpline for small businesses owners that's in stress. As I say, the university M students can help there with consultation. Then there's a huge sector of small businesses called the informal stall traders. According to my knowledge, there's more than 6,000 of them in South Africa. It could be much more. I know of about 6,000. And they were kept out of the loop the whole time. So I also want to ask the Deputy Minister so that we look at this informal stall traders and make it available for them to start trading. I know the Metro of Cape Town won a sort of a court case on Friday so that this informal stall traders could start trading. And we need to have a program and a strategy to help this small stall traders to get off their feet and to start trading. Chairperson, then also the banks. There's a system or a help for small businesses where the Treasury and the banks work together to help small businesses with loans. But unfortunately, Chairperson, the banks are seeing these clients as normal clients, and they use their normal criteria. And so most of the small business that's already in stress, they get declined by the banks. So I want to ask the Deputy Minister again to go back to the drawing board and talk to the banks and say, listen, the Treasury is in any case guarantee this money. So help this business. Doesn't matter about their financial history with the bank. Because at the moment, if you have a small problem of the past, the banks is just declining your loan. So if the Deputy Minister can please, with and Salma working with with their counterpart in the Treasury, help small businesses so that they can get this loans. And then, Chairperson, my last proposal is small sole proprietors. They can't register the businesses on the SAPRO website, and I want to propose that we work with SAPRO so that we use their ID numbers as a identification, and then we can register all sole proprietors because they in any case trade in their own names, and the unique number is their ID number. So use the ID numbers, get them registered as formal businesses as sole proprietors, and then they can get into the net and also get help. And the tax, the SARS can trace them. Everybody will benefit from this if we only use the ID numbers, and it's an easy process. So if Small Business Development Department can spoke to CIPC and get those platforms off the ground to help our small businesses. Thank you, Chairperson, and that is my
take. Okay, no, thank you very much. I think with the CIPC as a select committee on trade and industry, because it's an entity of trade, industry and competition, maybe we could arrange a meeting as select committee which will gladly allow you to be part of it, so that we check this if it was part of their mandate. It could be that it's not part of their mandate to register the sole proprietors, but we'll check with them when we invite them. Yeah. I want to check if Honorable Langa is back. I don't want to close him outside this meeting. But in the meantime, can we take Honorable Dango?
Apology, Chairperson.
Oh.
It's King here.
Yes.
Honorable Langa has just sent a message in a WhatsApp to say he is struggling with the network. He is in the meeting, but he's got a challenge with the network. He cannot be audible.
Oh, maybe then he can write his question, because I see Honorable Matevula has already written questions, and I'll ask the acting DG to take note of Honorable Matevula's question. Honorable Dango, followed by Honorable Mieni.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, if the DG can just explain to us, if he understands what the spread is between the wholesale financer, the original financer, the wholesale financer, and the end financer, what is the spread between each of them? So we can understand that. Two is, are the original funders of observing fiduciary responsibility in the loans that they are making? I think that becomes important. And three is for the ministry at this particular point in time that we're sitting with COVID, is to look at a Community Reinvestment Act to enforce wholesale funders to produce a particular amount of funding towards emerging businesses that may require that. So by law, they would then be compelled by X amount to do that, to consider that. Four is the other wholesalers actually labeling the countries of origin of the goods that they are reselling. I think it's important that we do that so that we can actually be selling South African produce to South Africans. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dango. Honorable Mieni, followed by Honorable Tim Protese.
thanks, Chairperson. Let me firstly
Are you there, Honorable Mieni?
am I audible now?
Yes, yes. Continue, Honorable Mieni. We can hear you.
Thank you very much. Let me firstly greet the DM and appreciate the presentation by the department. I got only 3 questions. What I want to check from the department, can the department furnish us all with the approved applicants or applications? Secondly, I wanted to check how much limits each Spaza shop qualifies, each Spaza shop. Lastly, the relief funds guarantees that are being executed or implemented via MFIs and RFIs. Is there any relief fund by the MFIs and the RFIs? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Tim, followed by Honorable Bridget.
Hello, Chair. I must at first just apologise. My camera is not is giving me hassles. I've got problems with signal. Whenever I put my camera on, it goes very bad. So I apologise not showing myself. Chair, there's just 2 questions. First of all, when you look at the presentation that we received, I believe it's on slide 6. And this echoes what my colleague, Honourable Kruger, has mentioned. It said that sole proprietors were not fully accommodated in the compliance requirements initially. Now, Chair, if I can just stop there for a second, that is completely unacceptable. This is the Department of Small Business Development. That means that the majority of people that we work with, or a large proportion, are going to be sole proprietors. They are small businesses. And to frankly, you know, it's almost like the symptom of somebody who's done well in life that says to a sole proprietor, oh, you must just register. It's no problem. It's easy. Get it done. And they forget about all the burdens that come with registering as a PTY Limited. A lot of sole proprietors cannot afford to have an annual audit from an audit firm. And all the other costs that come with that. We have to find a way. And frankly, to walk into this COVID-19 problem and just flippantly say, oh, well, sole proprietors, we can't help you, is literally destroying the fabric of our country at the moment. And I'm sorry, but the department to simply say that in a presentation that, oh, sorry, they weren't properly accommodated is simply not good enough. It's not good enough that we cut the legs off people that provided essential services but couldn't get a CRPC certificate in order to work. It's just not good enough. People have lost massive amounts of money. I have DM, I'm so glad you're here. I know you take this stuff seriously. Please take that on board. It's not good enough that we cut these people's legs off. My second question, Chair, I directed a question to the Ministry on the 22nd of May. And the question read as follows, and I'm just reiterating the question here. How many applications were received from small, medium, or micro enterprises since the opening of the COVID-19 debt relief process? I received an answer to that question. It was about 14,872 applications. I'm happy with that answer. But Chair, the second part of the question I'm not happy with. The second part of the question is how many small, medium, and micro enterprises were rejected, their applications were rejected as a result of not meeting the BBBEE criteria. Now, the answer I got, Chair, is that none, absolutely not one of the applications received from companies that did not meet the BBBEE criteria were rejected. I hope that I hope I'm phrasing that clearly. Effectively, what the department have told us is that all the companies that do not meet the BBBEE criteria, all of them that applied, none of them were rejected. But the minister said on this forum a week or two before that if you are not BBBEE compliant, you will not be able to qualify for funding. So those two don't meet each other. That is a massive problem. And the question, that the answer I got referred me to an Annexure A. It said, except for those people listed in Annexure A that were disqualified. But unfortunately, I did not receive an Annexure A. So I want to ask the Deputy Minister now and the DG, who obviously sent me that answer, may I please have Annexure A? As a result, it's my question that I sent to the Ministry on the 22nd of May. It says the only people that were disqualified from applying for the debt relief fund were those listed in Annexure A. And I can't work without Annexure A. So can the DG just supply me with Annexure A or send it via the committee or whatever? Because those are all the people that are listed that were disqualified for debt relief fund. And I'm quite sure the committee and certainly myself would like to see that list. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Tim. Honourable Bridget, followed by Honourable Lord.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes.
Hello, Chair.
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
No,
Maybe you should
no, thank
switch
you.
off your. Maybe you should switch off your
My
camera.
video. Okay,
Your video
thank you.
is. Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. Yes.
Okay, no, thank you, Chair. Let me also join the honorable members in welcoming the presentation, Chair, and further indicate that, Chair, I appreciate the input made by the DM on behalf of the department to say that really it was an eye-opener to us as the members of the portfolio committee. And Chair, also appreciate the update because it has been an issue that we have been raising in our meeting that we need to be updated on the challenges and the achievement that we have made as far as this COVID-19 pandemic and the operations of the department is concerned. Now, what I want to say, Chair, is that, sorry, Chair.
Yes. No, continue. Take your time.
Hello, Chair.
Yes.
Chairperson, my
I can hear
apologies.
you.
You see, working from home is a problem. Now you have kids and then they will come and run into you. You must go back to Parliament this COVID.
Yeah,
But
no,
let
I
me continue
understand.
with my... Yes, Chair, I was
Okay.
saying that I appreciate the update before I go to my questions, because we have been raising the challenges about the update. But I have two questions here, Chair. My first question will be, I've learned through the presentation that there were 21,414 incomplete applications that were referred to Seda. My question will be, how many did reapply and how many did they qualify, Chair? My second question will be, before this COVID-19 pandemic, Chair, was CIFA budget enough to cover its operation and the corporate plan? Now, if our plan is affected, Chair, does CIFA have the plan of the recovery plan, Chair? Because I've learned that obviously we must agree and acknowledge that as the portfolio committee, our department and the two entities were taken out of their way because of this pandemic. But Chair, we must not only be hard on the department and the two entities to say that there are challenges. I appreciate the challenges and the achievement, because I've also learned through the presentation that 13 have been meshed with the wholesalers for market access. So I want to say that I do appreciate, but we request that
department can continue to do more than what it have done, because to us it's an achievement, but it's still little, Chair. So I have only 2 questions that I raised earlier on to say that I also made a plea that can we be updated on weekly basis about the achievement and the applications that are coming, so that we avoid piling the information if it's possible. That is my submission, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Preacher. Honorable Lund, followed by Honorable Apleni, and followed by Honorable Moimang.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you. Chairperson, I'm glad that we're getting to a situation where we're getting joint presentations from Seda and SIFA. You would remember from our select committee meetings that I've been raising this, and both the entities agree to it, that they're starting to work together, moving closer to one another, ensuring that they have a bigger footprint and not duplicating too much work and staff and offices. I do want to support Honourable Kruger in his question that we also need to look at the current businesses, because I understand this fall under the Department of Small Business Development, but we also need to talk about the survival of the current businesses, because if you look at small businesses when they start up, the majority of them fail to get beyond the 2 years. But we do have thousands of businesses across South Africa that went through that initial 2-year period, that on their own struggled and survived and contributed to the economy. But now we're sitting, and I'm going to use my own constituency as an example. In Mossel alone, there's 129 businesses that is under business rescue and that's struggling, and in all likelihood will go under. Now, if you apply that across the entire country, it is thousands and thousands of small businesses that need support. So why isn't that we cannot give more support to these businesses that have already proven themselves to create jobs, to get through the difficulty and contribute to our economy? I'm not saying don't expand, but we are in a crisis situation now, and we need to support those that have already proven themselves to add value to our economy. Also, one of the things, we are entering a new normal and a new way of needing to do businesses. And I think I just need to check, but I think it's program 2, program 3, where you talk about what you need to do from a technological aspect. Now, many of these established businesses also need to access a market that they cannot access on their own. They maybe don't have the skills or the access to people that can ensure that they can compete in a new environment where a lot of this is going to go online. And I don't see this department or the entities speaking to that and helping to address that. The last thing is, I know this also falls under the Department of Labour, but it's something that Honourable Deputy Minister and the Minister as well should take up, because you get reports on a daily basis of businesses that have applied for UIF, TERS, and I hear there's a lot of people that's blaming 1 or 2 small businesses. Yeah, they get the money and they're not paying it over to the staff, but there are hundreds of businesses, and that should be addressed. I'm not saying it should not be addressed, but we should also look at all the businesses that have applied and didn't get the payment that they're due. And those people are struggling. They're struggling to keep afloat. They're struggling to look after not just their own family, but also the families of those that work for them. And that is a concern that needs to be addressed. Now, if you're going to be part of this department that supports small businesses, that's something that you need to help us fight for, so that the businesses that just keeping head above water, they can stay afloat and survive in these times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Lund. Honourable Apleni has got also communication challenge, so we'll also encourage him to write his questions on the chat function, and then the department will attend to those questions. Honourable Moimang, followed by Honourable Mpele.
Thank you, Chair. Let me take this opportunity to also add my voice in support of those that express their appreciation to the updaters led by the Deputy Minister in terms of the work that the department is doing together with its entities to relieve the pressure that is visited upon our SMMEs as a result of the pandemic. Chair, my question relates to the fact that there are numbers given in terms of the incomplete applications. I wanted to check with the DG if these numbers of the incomplete application was to be attended to in terms of ensuring that they do not fall through cracks. They attempted to sort of cost these applications with a view to ensure that on the basis of their commitment to assist the SMMEs, they are then able to position themselves in the next coming 6 months to ensure that these applicants, particularly those that comes from our vulnerable communities, are attended to. Obviously mindful of the fact that the DG said there are those that could be attended to through the UIF program of the Department of Employment and Labour. The second point relates to the fact that the Spaza shop program, it looks like we are not doing that well as a province. Of course, mindful of the fact that the DG said also attributed our population that could be a contributing factor. But I'm more interested in terms of extra effort on the part of the department to ensure that the smaller provinces are not left behind in terms of the SMME relief fund and also the Spaza shop, because the big city centers, probably because of the participants, probably because of the complexity because of their readiness, because of how their structure is well assembled, they might be in a better position to make use of the opportunities that are presented by the department and its entities. What is it specifically that the department is doing to pay attention to the rural provinces and rural municipalities to ensure that they are able to track and identify those small businesses and even informal? I'm raising this point informed by the fact that there are various forms of business. It could be a sole proprietor, it could be a close corporation, it could be a partnership, it could be a company. And therefore, moving from that background, it then becomes an area of challenge to me to see why should a form of business be a criteria that either include you or exclude you from accessing the SMME relief fund, so that we must not find ourselves discriminating against those shop owners in the rural villages that necessarily have been in existence for the last 10 to 20 years, but just by virtue of the fact that they have not incorporated themselves, they cannot be assisted. So I think it's an area that the department should really look into, so that we are then able to also put much more emphasis in terms of the profile of those applicants that were either not approved by virtue of the form of business that they are using in terms of their business enterprise. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. Honorable Bele, followed by Honorable Landsman and Honorable April, in that order.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hope I am audible to everyone. And thank you to the acting DG for the presentation. From my side, it is two questions and then just one statement. The first is to raise an issue that was brought to me by a handful of small business applicants to the relief funds, and I'm aware that the department did sort of briefly address it on social media, but I'm not sure that it's been fully explained, which is that the issue of the multiple emails that were sent out to applicants, and often they were erroneous in indicating that the application was either had outstanding documentation or that there was some sort of non-compliance issue, even if that wasn't the case. And one applicant told me this morning that apparently they received the same email 23 times. So there's clearly a sort of process or database or technology issue in terms of that communication system. If the department could just explain for the committee exactly what went wrong there, and what's being done to address that. That would be appreciated, and then I can also give that feedback when I receive queries on that issue. And then Chair Ogbusibili is to ask about the progress updates on the RFPs, the request for proposals that had been issued by the department concerning funding opportunities for cloth mask and other PPE production. If I recall correctly, the deadline for that had been extended to the 31st of May. So it's been just over, about a week and a half since that deadline passed for small businesses to submit their proposals. And here I stand under correction, so the acting DG must just correct me if I've got my understanding wrong. But my understanding was that the funding for working capital and equipment and other inputs that those RFPs were based on was going to come from the resilience fund. But that resilience fund was put on hold, and the allocated funds for that were then lumped in with the relief fund. So without knowing any more, and hopefully some light can be shed on that, it seems to me that there's been requests for proposals on PPE and cloth mask, etc. production, but the funds allocated for that are no longer there because they were redirected. So if I could just get a progress update on where things are at in that regard, or is it the case that maybe we're waiting for National Treasury to come back to the department about a funding top-up, or are those proposals being directed to other entities like maybe the IDC? I know they have a funding mechanism around PPE production as well. So just some clarity on that, please. And then thirdly, Chairperson, is just my information note, if I can put it that way, which is a suggestion to the departments and to SIFA and Seda, where relevant, just for some really clear and some clear communication about how the funds have been managed, how much funds have been committed as opposed to dispersed, because I'm sure the departments and the state organs are aware of this, but small businesses talk to each other. They pass the word along about what they've heard, what they've done, the feedback which that one got. And right now there is this there's this narrative that is circulating throughout parts of the small business ecosystem, based on what I assume is a misunderstanding because of unclear communication, which is the fact that the department had communicated that all the funds available had been used up in terms of that 1,500 odd beneficiaries that we were told about in the presentation. I think the figure was 1,497 up until a week or so ago. So clearly it's been updated slightly. But what's happening is that those applicants who were not approved their funding, they're hearing that the beneficiaries have not been given their full required funding, but it's being done monthly. So they think there's still money in the department, in the relief fund, that they can still apply for. And I told them that I would assume that funds have been committed, but they're being disbursed in monthly installments. So even though there might still be money technically in the relief fund, it's been committed over a 6-month time frame to beneficiaries that have been finalized. That's the kind of detail that needs to be communicated so that people don't think, oh, there's still money available because they weren't disbursed so much. So if I can just put that on the table for the department to really be succinct in communicating that kind of progress and those results. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mpele. Honorable Landsman.
Thank you, Chair. Hope you feel much better. Thank you, DM, for taking time to come to the committee. The only thing is, Chair, I hope you understand, when we are at the end, it will be a duplication of asking the same questions because we are not just one committee, we are a joint committee and everyone asks the same questions more or less. So I'm covered, Chair. It's just appreciation and acceptance of the presentation.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Honorable April, and followed by Honorable Jacobs.
I don't know if I'm audible.
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate the presentation that was given. It is indeed comprehensive, although I just arrived halfway through the presentation. I've got only a few questions, Chairperson, if you would allow me. Just a second. I've gone through the presentation that was sent to us via email, and I have seen a couple of things that I just want to raise. So just give me a second. I'm struggling with this gadget here. There we go. I just wanted to find out, in terms of the support program that was represented, how much limit each Spaza shop qualifies for. And then I also want to check, when we note that under SIFA's wholesale lending, after, come on, where am I now? After the wholesale lending, there are 4 intermediaries that request a payment holiday. 3 of these entities are based in Gauteng and 1 in Mpumalanga. Can we also be given a profile of those intermediaries in terms of ownership and so forth, so that we know who is being assisted with these programs that SIFA is running? And then I also want to check that the business growth or resilience facility, is it on hold or is it phased out completely? Lastly, I want to check with SIFA that the money that was allocated to SIFA before the COVID-19, was that budget sufficient, and the use of that budget, how is it rolled out? Just give us an update on that. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable April. Honorable Jacobs.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to everybody. Just a few remarks. I think I'm a bit distracted because I just got news of one of our health workers in a day hospital here in Athlone that also passed on at the hospital. So things are a bit difficult here in the Cape. as a member of parliament for the Greater Athlone area, we're in the epicenter of things. So our sincere condolences to her and her family. Chair, I think we in this pandemic and there's a lot of crisis. So I think we're asking for the department to do more. We are grateful that they've approved the 1,500 people, but we're really looking at asking the president and also the National Treasury to give more money to this department so that we can give more of our people an opportunity. I think the key thing for me is that we're seeing a lot of businesses here applying for business rescue, but there's also a lot of scrupulous people here in the rural areas. I also got an SMS with the MP and says that said to me, die boere gaat ons afbedank, and they've taken the money and they're not getting the money back into the system. So I think what we need here, there's also this notion of white empowerment, WEE, in the Western Cape, where they're basically saying that they're only supporting white businesses and only buying by white businesses in the Western Cape. And so people are not be given opportunities in the Western Cape. I think we know that ownership patterns, not only in big businesses, but also in small businesses, are largely skewed towards traditional white constituency. So I think we mustn't fight this fight on the race anymore. Our people are struggling. All of us are in this pandemic together. So we applaud what the department is doing. But I think what more could be done to focus on women, on rural and youth and on townships, because that is where the traditional people are that have been marginalized for the longest time. So we're asking for the department to map this out more systematically. We welcome the initiative of the mapping of the Spaza shops, but I think what is more important, instead of waiting for applications to come, we need to see where we need shops in those rural areas which is exploiting our communities, which is not helping our communities. And I like the model that Member Dango has raised around lending, empowerment lending schemes, so that we can help small business, micro business, like the Grameen Bank. And so I think we're asking the department to look at those. Obviously, there's not a lot there that we can get from national government, but we need the partnership, and we're calling on the department to look at innovative financial models that changes the landscape, the financial landscape and the economic landscape. Look, there will be people that will complain about broad-based black economic empowerment, but they ideologically are in a minority, and we need broad-based black economic empowerment to help our people, take them out of our poverty. We don't just want to be workers also. We want to also benefit the fruits and be part of ownership. So if I'm appealing to those businesses that are struggling, look at how you work with your workers and find a joint way. And I'm also appealing to the department to find if there is ownership schemes with workers that they can also fund in this way. I've also visited a black-owned business in Philippi, a black woman, African woman that's struggling. She's got PPE protective, but she's not being given opportunities because here in the Western Cape, there's no broad-based black economic procurement policy. So this woman has to send a tender for outside areas, but not in the Western Cape. So that's also something that we need to look at. I think the questions around micro lending and Spaza shops, I think we just want a breakdown in the Western Cape. For me, where is it? Also, the limits of the Spaza shop, how much do people qualify for? With regards to the Spaza shop support program, is there credit, loan, and what is the guarantee, and how do they access? Maybe just more information around that. But we appeal that the department continue to do this. They must stay with our constituency, continue to communicate with our people. We know the need is bigger than the demand, so we are appealing to the department to be responsive to our community's needs. But I think we commend the minister. She must come visit us more often on this platform. But we commend the minister and the department and the deputy minister and the whole entire ecosystem of small business. Keep it up. We really are proud of what you're doing, but there's room for improvement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jacobs. Honorable DM Makapa, we it's over. It's back to you now. So you'll decide whether you want to come first or you allow the department, the entities to respond first, and then maybe you can then come back later. Then over to you, Mata. You can unmute Mata. You are muted. You are still muted, Mata. You are still muted. You are still muted.
Chair, maybe keep the DG, please.
Yeah, maybe in the meantime, let's allow then the acting DG to respond. Okay. Acting DG, can you and your team respond to the questions until 1700 hours, so that if there are any follow-up questions from members, we can allow that as well.
Thank you, Chair. I think the significant number of questions are for SIFA. Let me allow them to go first, and then we'll answer other questions. Chairperson?
Yeah, if I can go ahead, Chair.
Okay.
SIFA Chairperson?
No, thank you, Chair. If we miss some, please alert us of that, and thanks to honourable members and the honourable DM, and acknowledge the DG also and our colleagues from Seda. My sense, starting with Honourable Hendricks, that it was merely an input for us to be alive to the challenges that are out there, and there's a suggestion that has been made directly to the department. I guess the DG will respond to that. Honourable Kruger, we do understand that there would be a number of the issue about informal traders, rather the 4,000 or so informal traders. The department, I think at the right time, is going to be announcing other interventions that are responding to the informal traders. I would want to comment on that. Perhaps the DG will respond to that. We'll deal with that also. Equally, the question on small business development. The question from Honourable Dango is a question also that resides mainly within the department. The issue around the wholesalers, the wholesalers that are involved in the schemes that the department has initiated. Honourable Mieni, the question on the names of approved applicants, that information has been released from SIFA. I guess in due course it should be reaching your desk. I think, unless I'm mistaken, I may be confusing. I think there was a question of whether there was going to be any further relief for those that have been excluded, coming from Honourable Mien. As I said, there will be instruments that the department will be announcing, which some of them will be coming through us for implementation. As we get back to normal business, it's always possible for us to deal with further interventions that may be required from SIFA side as people come through to apply. On the sole proprietors side, I think we dealt with this question, Honourable Chair, in the last meeting, and I was the one that responded to it. Just to clarify it a bit more. At no point were we arguing that we cannot support sole proprietors. Let's underline that. The issue was that the rules are such that we are supposed to support enterprises that are duly registered. So unless if I didn't understand the, so if the suggestion is that we should support enterprises or sole proprietors rather that are not duly registered, it makes it difficult for us to do so because we'll be going out outside the framework in terms of what guides us in terms of the rules of implementation that we are supposed to operate within a SIPA. So indeed, we have funded sole proprietors. Let's put it on record. And we estimate that of the applications that we've dealt with for those sole proprietors that are registered is around the region of about 10% of the applicants that we dealt with. So we can provide further detail on that. There was also a question that was raised relating to, I mean, when we dealt with the question of sub-proprietors was, I think the same question, in the same line, there was a question on, a repeat question, I would say, on the BEE, or those applications that were not BEE compliant, that were, I think like you were saying, rejected, if I'm not mistaken. So in essence, in our application of the rules, in our evaluation and processing of the applications, I clarified it last time, there was no point where a decision was taken that people be excluded because they will not be compliant. So we did approve people that will not be compliant. But we, as indicated, I think the DM, if I'm not mistaken, raised that point. The DG definitely made points, and other members, honorable members, about the constraints relating to the availability of the funding, whether the funding could match that which was supposed to fund, the demand as it was coming out from the enterprises. The reality is that even if people could have been compliant to be funded, when we reached a point where the funds were not sufficient to process, we had to stop at that point. Otherwise, we were going to contravene the provisions of the PFMA, that we would commit money that which is not available for SIFA to in fact finance, to discharge its obligations on. So as we know, there's a much more larger basket of people, which is far bigger than those that we've approved, that we could not in fact allocate. So it would not have been because they're not BE compliant that we excluded them. When we made the point on BE compliance, we said, if we are dealing with a basket of applications, we would have to make sure that the distribution of that commitment does in fact not negate the need for us to appreciate the policy framework within which we operate. That's all we're trying to explain. So we're not saying we don't, we're saying we have to be alive to the fact that there is a BE policy that we have to respond to. It's an obligation on our part to do. We have that responsibility to do so as SIFA. Honorable Shomelang, I think I've partly explained, as we said. So in fact, we were talking about the SIFA availability before COVID. As per our corporate plan, indeed, we were on safe ground, if one would put it as lightly as that. So we did have a budget that made it possible for us to operate in a sustainable way as SIFA. Do we have a recovery plan? We have, as you may be aware, tabled a draft corporate plan that a new corporate plan rather for the new financial year. Our understanding is that it is going to be a balance between securing the sustainability of SIFA, responding to the pressures on the economy as the SMMEs are in fact facing. So we know that COVID is not gone, and there may be other subsequent challenges that we have to respond to. Hence, I don't want to respond I don't want to delve into the space where the department, as I said, will be pronouncing on new interventions, which we are getting ourselves ready as those interventions are made, additional interventions are made, so that we respond appropriately. So we will be able, at least in the foreseeable future, be able to go on, continue to discharge the responsibility of SIFA. So that's how we understand to be the recovery plan. We understand that from government side, we are also going to be guided about the makeup and direction as far as the new economy is concerned. And all we have to do on our side is to give ourselves to respond. Of course, we do make input between us and the department on propositions that are made, and we, based on our experience, where there's an indication of what we can do or what could be done, and whatever input that the department requires, we do so accordingly. Equally, in the comments from Honorable Shamelang and others before her, there was an acknowledgement of the work that we've done without me citing everybody. We greatly appreciate it, and we're encouraged to continue to do the work that we do. Honorable Ward raised, I think the main point that I would raise talks to the survival of current businesses and the issue around adaptation in terms of technology. I am not sure if we can specifically, if I would be responding appropriately, but if I was to give a generic response, at any given time when we are in normal business, as CIFA receives application, be it applications for improvement of business systems, be it applications for expansion, and there's a justifiable case, in the case of each individual enterprise, there is no reason that we should not look at that application based on its merit and advance, provide the funding as would be required by that business. What we may not be able to do is to lead that charge to say this is what enterprises should do to become technologically compliant. We leave that to the entrepreneurs to propose. Honorable Moemang raised the question around what would be, whether we had done some costing on the estimation, let me put it, the costing of if we were to respond to everything else, what would be the shortfall that we needed to respond to. The last estimate that we're working on was around 12 billion, which is quite a large amount, and I guess it will be not foreseeable, at least in the short to medium term, that CIFA may be able to respond appropriately to that. So my understanding is that it is going to be a diverse range of interventions that may assist government and CIFA, and perhaps with the interventions from all other fronts on the ecosystem to be able to respond. One critical point that was raised, whether be it for this falling through the cracks or talking to the issue against, for instance, the issue of technological advancement, is, I think, a very important point that honorable members suggested about how government traces the loan guarantee schemes that have been advanced to the banks, because that could come in quite handy in terms of plugging in some of the gaps that will be there. Honorable Mbele, the issue of the email system, indeed, it is true. We had a number of glitches, and without defending CIFA solely, I think it's common when you're dealing with this large volume of transactions that you would have these errors. We are working on releasing a statement to the community, to the business community rather, to the SME community in that regard as CIFA, to take ownership of the challenge that we experienced. So indeed, I think you're spot on your understanding of the 1497 and the issue about people getting confused, that people are getting money in tranches. So the arrangement is such that as we agreed with the department, we would approve applicants, but we knew that it would be a bit irresponsible for us to dispatch all the funds at once. And also because we need to track, that the funds are used for that which they applied for. So it is still possible that in the course of us monitoring that implementation, you might find SMEs that are not compliant. In that case, we'd have to decide whether we can continue advancing, because if we agree on an agreement that people must comply, they must comply as such and not, in fact, deviate from the agreements of the funding. So we are, in fact, disbursing, as you said, monthly. We appreciate the input. We are very alive to the fact that you raised about the need for us to advance, to sharpen our communication. We know we've acknowledged it before that our communication is a challenge, but of course with COVID it even became much more complicated and much more of a daunting task to do so. We will continue to sharpen that. We appreciate the input. Honorable Jacobs, I think the points that are raised, we've noted them quite strongly. We are all open as we are to all communities to assist where we can in advancing the cost of funding small enterprises, especially those that are on the periphery. we are more than willing to respond. And as we indicated before, through the network of CIFA regional offices, it should be possible for those people that are on the ground to respond first and be able to assist where there are challenges. Where we may not, and perhaps the DG may be able to come in, I don't know about the case of the Western Cape, where we may not be that effective in terms of is securing the uptake for these enterprises, as you say. We know that our responsibility has to be complemented by those of other agencies like Seda and even government itself, the set-asides that are there. So it could be possible that if indeed there are constraints in the Western Cape, it could be possible through the national government departments that, for instance, I'm just raising a suggestion perhaps, that those enterprises could probably get support. So in case, in particular, where those people are able to pick up orders, for instance, for their products in those areas where they are coded, there is no reason under normal circumstances that we should not be able to respond as CIFA and Seda and the department to assist. Thank you very much. I hope I've responded. Let me just pass on to the CEO, rather, Chair, for him to fill in the gaps where I've left out other issues.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Maybe just to touch on few questions that myself and my other colleague as well will touch on. Firstly, maybe just to reinforce the question again, Honorable Moyeni, check the website of our executive authority, DSBD, where there will be publications of the approved applicants. I think the issue around the Spaza shop limits was raised by Honorable Mieni, Honorable April, Honorable Jacobs. My colleague Dumi as well will just explain further around that, but just to mention, there are two facilities of 3,500 each, which works out to 7,000. The first 3,500 is a grant that is given to a Spaza shop owner who would have qualified under the criteria that is there. And then once that has been exhausted, they can then now utilize the second 3,500 in a form of a credit, which means they need to pay that money back when they go to a wholesaler to buy, for the third time. But as I say, my colleague as well can add on other things as well. The issues of the RFIs, MFIs raised again by Honorable Mieni, Honorable April. We will obviously, again, I'll ask my colleague to touch on that. But maybe just for me to conclude on the issue raised by Honorable Brettonseth is that we are having currently programs that are COVID related in ensuring that, amongst other things, we save the jobs by helping those SMMEs that, due to the alert levels that we were at, level 5, many of them couldn't operate. And because they couldn't operate, it meant there was no income for those businesses. There was a need for them to continue paying, their employees. So there was a need to cover the payroll. There was a need to cover the rentals and other costs that are business related. Those issues, because they were, related to the level, the alert levels at which we were. Now that the economy is opening up, the minister is well placed in that there are a number of programs that will be introduced which are geared towards what we call economic recovery. So, in other words, beyond where we are, there will be no need for us to continue supporting businesses with payroll because the expectation is that they will be going back to start operating. However, when it comes to us increasing capacity around those businesses that are manufacturing the essential goods, because we will continue, needing the cloth masks, the sanitizers as our children, many workers are going back to work. This is where, in terms of economic recovery, we are going to, continuing to support SMMEs so that they can manufacture, they can add onto their capacities as well. I think Let me stop there, and then I'll just ask my colleague Tumi to expatiate really on the Spaza Shop program, and then also on those RFI, MFIs as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. On the Spaza Shop program, the program is an ongoing program that we are implementing, and as the CEO explained, the limits are a maximum of 7,000 Rand support per Spaza Shop. However, the first 3,500 is non-repayable, and then the second part is a credit facility. And this money is made available for the Spaza Shops to access stock from wholesalers at a discounted price. It is envisaged that this program will continue to expand as we rejuvenate the space and support Spaza Shops that are operating in the space. On the question asked around the intermediaries, I just want to make one correction. There are 4 intermediaries that's received support in the form of payment holidays, and 2 are based in Gauteng, as in their head offices are based in Gauteng. 1 is based in Limpopo, and then the 4th one is based in Mpumalanga. The 4 intermediaries, 2 of them are operating in the taxi industry, and these are intermediaries that SIFA entered into loan agreements with many years ago, and are offering financial support to taxi owners in the taxi industry. And the payment holidays that were passed on to them, they then passed on to the taxi owners to make sure that benefit flows through to the end users. The other 2 are MFIs, which are microfinance institutions that in the main are supporting women that are operating in rural areas who could not trade, particularly during the level 5 lockdown and to some extent to the level 4 lockdown. And once again, that benefit was then passed on to the end user micro enterprises, which are in the main in the rural areas in across approximately 5 provinces of women-owned micro enterprises. We will share the ownership profile of these intermediaries with the committee in writing. However, the microfinance institutions are NPCs, as in they are non-profit organizations, and therefore there are no shareholders as such that benefited from this intervention. And then the 2 intermediaries in the taxi industry, one of them has Santaco as a shareholder. So we will share the details of the ownership profile of the 4 intermediaries, the 2 that are headquartered in Gauteng, 1 in Limpopo, and the other is in Mpumalanga. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tumi. I don't know where, Ms. Solomon, if we can read out the question of Honorable Matebula. I don't know if Ms. Tumi is also responding to it on the issue of written response on the profile of the SMMES. But if you can just read it out before we ask the DG to respond to his questions.
Okay, thanks, Chair. There are 3 questions from Honorable Matabula. It is, what actions is the department going to take regarding the SMMEs who received money from UIF to pay employees and don't pay them? The second question is, out of the 14,800 applications you received, how many black SMMEs owned by women have been assisted? And then the third question is, out of the 130 approved SMMEs from Limpopo, how many rural SMMEs owned by women have been assisted so far? Those are the 3 questions.
Okay. Chairperson and CEO, and Tumi. Did you get the questions from Honorable Matevula? Sifa?
Just a second, Chair. The first one was how many black women-owned businesses, okay? Am I right?
Yes, but if you can also go to the meeting chats, the questions are also written there.
On the chat, okay.
Yes, on the chat, yes.
Okay, so the one was on just a second, Chair.
Okay. Or maybe can we allow then the DG to respond to those questions that are directed to him?
Yes, meantime,
you come back, Chairperson and the CEO, on the questions of Honorable Matevula.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether this Chairperson of Seda would like to respond to some of the questions. Dr. Ndlovu.
I think they're still working out, they're still looking at the written questions from Honorable Matevula. So I was, in the meantime, giving you the opportunity to respond to those that were directed to the department.
Okay.
Honorable Chairperson, maybe before the DG comes in, we could respond from Seda on some of the questions or comments that were made that SIFA Chairperson and CE did not touch on. So if the Honorable Chairperson can allow us, if we can just come in quickly whilst everybody's still looking at Honorable Matebula's questions.
Okay, no, you can go ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Please, we can only hear the voice.
All right, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Can you see me?
I can't see you, but if other members can see you, it's fine. Yeah, we can see you now.
All right. No, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And honorable members, thank you for inviting us. I think most questions were directed to the department as well as to SIFA, but there are a couple of comments maybe and one or two questions that we'd like to answer. I think the first one from Honorable Kruger, he has made a number of very helpful suggestions, particularly the one on suicide helpline. Those are some of the things that we can that we can look into as SIFA to see how we can assist on those kind of issues. The issues of informal stall traders, I think our CE, acting CE, will also just talk on some of the things that we have done when looking at the ecosystem and seeing how we can assist more than just the people that we have been assisting. Then there's a comment that was raised by Honorable Lond on the issues of what we are doing when it comes to access to markets in this new challenging circumstances that we are finding. We have actually already started doing something there. We are looking at digitalization. I think our acting CE will talk more into it, but we've had webinars and training that talks exactly to this new state of being and how entrepreneurs can look at accessing different markets. Honorable Muimang spoke to the issues of rural provinces as well as municipalities to say that they shouldn't be left behind. We are very much aware that we need to be looking at those communities, and we have adopted a district municipal approach to ensure that they are not left behind. So in all our service offering, we are looking at those and seeing for each municipality, for each district, what is it when we're doing our mapping? Where are we lacking and how we can assist with that? Then I also wanted to respond to Honorable Jacobs. I think his comments were heartfelt and that talks to exactly what is it that we are trying to address at Seda. We have a diverse range of offering, and we want and our offerings and how we've been reviewing our offerings based on the informed engagements that we've been having with SMMEs. There are various surveys that we've done during this COVID period so that we understand where people are where there's a gap and how we can then assist. On the issues of profiling the rejected applicants, I will then hand over to our acting CEO, Ms. Majola, to talk on that, and then maybe just to talk on the issue so that she can give some sort of comfort to members that we are looking at all enterprises within the ecosystem. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Dr. CEO Machola.
Thank you, Chair. Am I visible?
No. We can't see you, CEO.
Can you see me now?
Oh, yes, we can see you now. Yes.
Okay,
you can
thank
continue,
you.
CEO. Yes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll start with the question on applications that were, or whatever applicants that were assisted to reapply after they did not meet the criteria initially. So I wanted to say of the 21 applications that did not meet or the requirements or were incomplete, Seda only received, I think, about 13,000 from SIFA, but I also want to emphasize that the bulk of these were only received on the 5th week of lockdown, around the 6th of May, because we had teething problems with the application process initially. I think, as the DG mentioned at the start of his presentation, that we had serious teething problems. The system was not coping with the volume of applications that came through to SIFA, but that was sorted out after sourcing external assistance. So we sent back about just over 2,000 applications to SIFA, and while we were still processing the applications, the budget was then exhausted. In other words, the applications exceeded the budget that was allocated for the scheme. So it would not have made sense for Seda to continue processing those applications, because they had to be channeled to the UIF scheme, which has different requirements, because Seda's role was to check if all the applications that were returned by clients after they were informed that there were documents that were missing, did they have all the required information? So some of that information is not required by UIF, like CIPC registration. So it would not have made any sense, and we're not going to add any value in the process for us to process them. So, but what SIFA did, they've sent standard communication to all outstanding applications, informing them that they need to apply directly to the UIF. The other question I wanted to respond to is one of platforms. Yes, we do acknowledge the fact that our virtual platforms were not ready for the situation that we found ourselves in, and that even after we had developed training material, training programs, we rerouted our telephone systems, WhatsApp group to be able to assist clients remotely. That was also not enough, because some of those platforms were reliant on our clients having data, and we've indicated to the department that that's a space that also requires Microsoft Spaza and the collaboration of municipalities to ensure that there are Wi-Fi zones in most of the areas, and that there are zero-rated platforms to enable clients that cannot afford data to access government services. Currently, with the assistance of the ecosystem development for small enterprises, we are working on our digitization strategy to address this problem that we are in now. The other thing that the department allocated the targets for Spaza shops per province. So each province is allocated a certain number of Spazas that can be assisted. That is to ensure, or rather to give equal opportunity to all Spaza owners to apply, even those provinces where the applications are trickling in slowly. There is a number that is allocated to their provinces, and we are also working closely with municipalities as outreach points and also as drop-off points for documents, so that people don't travel too far in those instances where they are not close to Seda branches for them to submit applications. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, CEO. I don't know, before we go to SIFA and the department again, I don't know whether it was a good strategy to, on the debt relief fund, to include the issue of payroll. Because now with those applications that were not, even though they met all the requirements, but because there was no money now, now they are channeled to the UIF, which is only going to look at the issue of payroll, not the issue of utility bill and rentals. I mean, so say you must go to UIF. What about then the utility bill and the rentals? So that's why I'm just checking if perhaps you did not include the payroll, just focus on the utility bill and the rentals, so that then those SMMEs take responsibility of applying themselves for the UIF, rather than after their application have not been successful. They are now told that you can go to the UIF, which is only going to deal with the issue of the payroll only, not the rentals, not the utility bill. But also the question, I don't know whether it's going to be the department that is going to respond to the question that also came up from members, is these facilities on the resilient and what is happening, because it's been on hold. And the money that was used out of the 300 million, it's about 16.7 million that was used. So meaning that you still have around more than 280 million that has not yet been used for that particular facility. So what is happening with regard to that particular amount? Can I go back to Chairperson of SIFA and the CEO?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we got the question properly. Yeah. So on the SMMEs the Black women-owned SMMEs, we don't at this stage have those numbers. Not because it wasn't, but let me just go back just to explain, because I guess members would wonder why. The issue is that as we indicated, we were processing these applications through the 2 emails that Honorable Mbele also referred to. Under normal circumstances, when we operate in our normal business as SIFA, we've got a system, an IT system that we use, which when an application goes and is loaded, it's easier for us to extract information on that front from that system when required. Now, the department has also requested us to crystallize that information. We're still trying to sift on that to get as much as we can, but it basically means it meant that we had to upload the applications which were previously dealt with manually, upload them into the system again so that it generates some data. So we're still trying to clean up that data to get the figures. Hopefully we should be able in the near future be able to give you a much more clearer information on the gender divide. But the rest of the demographics, we have that information. The issue on rural enterprises in Limpopo, those are in the rural, that we can call rural applicants, on the total number of Limpopo is, with the standard about 38 approvals that we made, which come from the rural areas for Limpopo province, out of a total of 130. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Department.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, thank you, Chair. Maybe the question from Honorable Hendricks, I will leave that to the DM. I think it's a political question. Then a question from Honorable Kruger on informal traders. I think the Chair of SIFA did explain a little bit that we are working on an intervention. We are also partnering with some stakeholders because, like we indicated, the budget is exhausted. So we are mobilizing more funding from other stakeholders. We'll be announcing those interventions very soon because they are very critical stakeholders. But we also understand that we might not be able to cover many people in the space, but we will try and make sure that we do support them. There is a discussion, Chair, that we are having with the DTIC, but I know that the Chair said they will also engage at their level in terms of the CIPC, the registration of sole proprietors. But we are also having that discussion as well from our side, so that we can be able to accommodate especially the sole proprietors as well as the informal businesses and make it easier for them to register. And then, Honorable Dango, I think the questions that you raised, I'm not sure whether I understood, but I saw them here on the chat. I'm not sure whether I get the question clear, but in terms of the way we are working with the wholesalers for now, what we did was to go, first what we did, we had to interact with the Spaza shops. They indicated to us the basket of goods that they normally buy from the wholesalers, and then we negotiated with the wholesalers discounts for our Spaza shops owners so that the 3.5 that we are advancing to them, they are able to cover or to get as many goods as possible. And then in terms of the labeling of those goods, no, Chair, that's why we are bringing in local SMMEs to supply, because we believe that most of the goods can be supplied, but there are many SMMEs who are producing those goods, and we want them to be the preferred supplier of these wholesalers. So some of the wholesalers are welcoming us, even though it's taking a little bit longer for them to onboard them because of those labeling issues, the branding, the barcoding, and all those other things. But at least SMMEs are improving in that space. And then the other issue around wholesale funding, the community investment, and all those things. Chair, I had indicated that we're working on the funding policy because currently we don't have a funding policy in the country, and it was delayed. We were pushing to finalize that policy as soon as possible because it will assist us to look at other support instruments, because definitely the money that is sitting with government will never be able to cover all the SMMEs funding needs. I remember the research that was done by SA SME Fund in partnership with FinFind. They pointed out to 47 billion, the amount that is needed currently by SMEs just to support them financially, and that was before COVID. So it's obvious that we will never be able to fund all SMMEs through the interventions that we have as government. Then I think some questions were answered by by the chairpersons. The other one was by Honorable Tim on the question that he sent to the department. I just retrieved the response to that question. We said, yes, I think the chairperson of SIFA did explain this in the previous meeting. Yes, we said none. The applications that are rejected are those that do not meet the attached criteria or fraudulent applications, and then we attach the criteria that was utilized for SMME debt relief. So we will forward again the criteria I think it got lost in the system, but we had attached that criteria because it's only those who did not meet those requirements. I think Honorable Bridget, on the update on weekly basis, we are trying to do that. I think, unfortunately, the last time we put information on our website was on the 22nd of May, but we are trying to put information on a daily basis just to update the public in terms of how many people have been paid. Then I think Honorable Lund, he raised some key questions around what are we doing. I think the chairperson of SEFA did respond to some of those questions, but we are also, as part of economic recovery now, because we understand that we are implementing the SMME debt relief just to address the current crisis. But for going forward, there is an instrument which is being developed. In fact, it's almost finalized now. It's done by our colleagues, which is jointly our SEFA, Seda, and the department colleague, called business viability, because we understand that the way of doing business has changed. So we need to assist our SMMEs to be able to adjust their technology, their platforms, and whatever they are doing, even the commercial viability. They need to look at those things, the technology part aspect of it, because it's going to be critical going forward. And that also talks to the online platforms. I indicated it during my presentation that there are already 2 platforms that we are looking at. Unfortunately, one of them was just a marketing platform, but now if you need a platform where people can do business, you need to institute certain security measures, because there will be transactions that be conducted on those platforms. So we need to work on those and improve those systems. We are also talking to South African Post Office, because they also have a platform there that they want to avail for SMEs to conduct business online, because that's the way to go. So there are quite a number of instruments that we are looking at, and hopefully we'll be able to do that to finalize those as soon as possible, so that our SMEs can start using those particular platforms. And then there was a question, Honorable Moemang. Yes, I think it's true. We are pushing. I think last week, it was on a Saturday, on the 30th of May, we had a discussion with the regional managers of Seda, because they are also assisting us in administering these incentives, especially the Spaza Shop Support Program, because we have to look at ways on how we can support as many Spaza shops as possible. But the challenge with Northern Cape in particular was the distances between the towns and the limited number of. Initially, we were working with Nedbank, because they were the ones who were willing to come on board. But the other banks are coming. I think we've started with Standard Bank now. We are still negotiating with the South African Post Office. They did provide a proposal to us. We were not excited about it. We sent it back because we believe that their reach will assist us to reach as many Spaza shops as possible. So there are initiatives. Yesterday, like I indicated, we had an engagement with Free State, because they are also, the uptake is very low, and we have agreed in terms of what we are going to do going forward and how we're going to be sharing information so that we can encourage more SMMEs to come on board. And the good thing is that the wholesalers in Free State have come on board now, so the Spaza shops will have a wider choice in terms of choosing which wholesalers to work with. I think Honorable Mbele, on the issues of the RFIs, we started the issue of the RFIs because we noticed that most of the government departments, if I may start there, they were procuring, panicking, but which is understandable because of the crisis that we're facing. But we felt that most of the SMMEs are being excluded from these opportunities. So we issued those requests for information so that we can assist SMMEs to start complying and being integrated into the centralized supplier database. So we are almost on a daily basis. When we receive the RFIs, we assist them to improve in terms of the compliance requirements, and then we submit that information to the centralized supplier database, because that's where people or the government departments get information from or get suppliers from. So this morning, for example, we had a discussion with the DG of Department of Basic Education, and they said because of the agency, they had looked at getting factories to assist them because they needed 12 million masks. But he said he committed to us that now they're going to be working with us in terms of ensuring that SMMEs are also benefiting from this procurement because the COVID is not going anywhere anytime soon. So there will be more opportunities where they will be focusing on getting SMMEs to supply because they were pressed for time in terms of them opening the schools. So they had to go for the guys who could produce this mask quickly. Then I thought CFA will respond on the committed versus disbursement. I think they can provide that information, Chair. They do have that. I think you, Honorable Mbele, again, Mpemba, you articulated it very well, the issue of the communication. I think it's a challenge. I think, I don't know, maybe you work at CFA sometimes because you indicated that the money, the way we are dispersing is exactly what you said. We disperse it on a monthly basis. They have to come back to us and say, this is what we've done with the money that you gave to us. We've paid this employee, we've paid our rent, we've paid for utilities, and then they get more funding in terms of the approval that was done. And then on the issue of the business growth, yes, the business growth was put on hold because the demand that we had was overwhelming from the SME debt relief, and that money was reallocated to that particular project. But we also understood that both NEF as well as IDC, they had opened up funding instrument to assist people who want to supply PPEs. So it was appropriate for us to redirect them to that because most of the SMEs were looking for SME debt relief rather than the business growth as well as the support to produce PPEs. I think Honorable Jacob.
What did you say? What happened to the money that was meant for the business growth?
Yes, we said the money that was meant for business growth was reallocated to SME debt relief.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's why we have around about 500 million now on the debt relief. Then Honorable Jacobs, yes, he raised some critical questions on the yes, Treasury. We are in serious discussions. I think DM did articulate that in her opening remarks, but we are also pushing the provinces. The only province that has really come on board and even indicated the budget that they've set aside was Gauteng. What we also did with them was that to avoid double dipping, they need to share their database so that people don't come and apply at SAFER and then they go and apply with Gauteng Enterprise Propeller. But they set aside 250 million, which will assist those who did not qualify. And then we know that Northwest, they've recently announced interventions. They did indicate to us that they have a budget. I think it was around 50 million, which will also assist those who are coming from Northwest who have been unable to get support from us. First aid, they said they'll be announcing very soon in terms of what they're going to be doing. So we are mobilizing all the provinces to also play a role in this aspect because they do have money that is supposed to support small business enterprises. We will, I think the information will be provided in terms of the breakdown on information on entities that are supported in Western Cape. I think the Grameen Bank example that Honorable Jacobs made, yes, I think we will take that into consideration because it's part of the SMME funding policy that we are developing, because we are also even talking to the CFIs, these cooperative financial institutions. We also started engagements even with the stockfiles because there is money that is sitting even in the townships that we can mobilize for this intervention. So there's quite a lot of work that we are doing to get more money rather than depend on the fiscus, which is very limited. Then the chair, on your remarks at the end, I think what we tried to do from the beginning, we tried to negotiate with UIF that what they need to do is to allow all those people who are coming to us and applying for salaries those applications so they can be sifted from us and taken to them directly. But unfortunately, they indicated to us, I think we negotiated for more than a month, they told us that in terms of their regulations that they issued, it's only people who were registered before the 15th of March. Those are the people they were willing to entertain. But we were encouraged last week by the statement from the Minister of Labour that now they are open, they will take those people who were not even registered, because initially they were very strict, saying they will only entertain those people who were registered and were paying UIF. So they were not willing to register or to support the SMMEs that were not part of the UIF, were not contributing to the UIF, and those who had outstanding contributions or outstanding debts from UIF. So it's only now that they've agreed now, which delayed us quite a bit. We would have addressed this measure, because the majority, most of the money people are applying for is for salaries and wages. Yes. Yeah, and then there is a question that was from Honorable Matebula on UIF. UIF is an entity of Department of Labour. I know that the Minister of Labour has indicated that they will pursue those SMMEs who receive money but are not paying the employers. So we will keep a tab on that. But I think even the committee will also be able to keep a tab on that in terms of ensuring that those SMMEs who have received UIF payment but are not paying their SMMEs, they are prosecuted. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable DM, what's up?
Thank you. Am I audible? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I apologize for the first time, but in fact it was in my mind that all the delegation will respond, because most questions they are doing day-to-day work. But I will attend to Honorable Kruger and Honorable Hendricks. On the part of the helpline for SMMES is that are developing suicidal tendencies. It is fortunate that COVID-19 teaches us new lessons and how to do things as a collective. We are working with the Department of Social Development, but indeed, the department will ensure that when we get such communication, it is directly directed to social development by the department to communicate, because we are not going to develop that skill today, because it's so much a professional to deal with such conditions. But we appreciate the constructive criticisms and also the wisdom of actually assisting us to understand our clients more better. Thank you very much, Honorable Kruger, because we will take the matters that we have raised very seriously. Recently, someone was saying their businesses is actually sinking. They have made an application, but they understand that they are not going to get any approval. And therefore, the wife was not able to inform the husband that there is a horrible crisis coming to them as a team or as a family. That therefore confirms your statement that we can't deal physically with people. We must be holistic. And I think in the cluster arrangement, we will be communicating with those so that such hotlines are being able to be attended to. Secondly, I think you correct, Honorable Hendricks, the department, while having all the other tentacles, their hands, their ears, in the form of our agencies and other partners, the department remains accountable, because it is the department they run. It is their duty to take responsibility of where successes are and actually capitalize them. And the department is also willing to take any weaknesses that occur in our operations and seeks to attend to them, to an extent of actually wanting to apologize where we've gone wrong. Coming to the issue of failing small businesses, I think we are, as a responsible department, we cannot be saying our small businesses were not failed. The fact is, this COVID-19 has failed all businesses, small and big, and has made our whole economic ecosystem to fall below repression, rather to depression. And therefore, small business are no exception. All we need to do is to say it was unfortunate. We are all of us were all in this. And we will have an arrangement that is collectively responding. So the small businesses, the big businesses, the social aspect of our community, all of those. So social development has been made to be central in this, because whilst the economy is going down, social problems are actually increasing, whether it's young people unemployed, whether it's those who can't pay the university. So this issue for us, we would want to invite all of the members of parliament, all the members in our committee to have a strength to work with us, and also to have a confidence of saying, we will tell you when you are wrong. So we accept that, and there will be many mortalities insofar as businesses are concerned. And that is why the whole country is approaching several banks inside our country and outside our country. We are part of that, and the minister is actually participating in that forum. And I remember the minister saying, no, members must understand our operational environment. You have two countries in one. There are those who know what to do, and they actually change their businesses, whether from construction or whether from grocery. They shifted to the more needed type of trade. They moved into the masks, but others, because they don't know, they don't have anything. Even if they were in the clothing and sewing, they were not able to shift to masks immediately. They wouldn't have a cloth. And business is about competition. Others, they were in others, but they were able to shift to the ones that were relevant, which became a priority. So there was very much uneven access. Others are still there in the basket of those who are poor. And then the notion of, I agree, we must support those who are survivists, support them so that they can grow. But at no stage will we forget that we still have to go straight and shoot into the dark to say, come, you can still be in business. And also you talk of the informal, and the disparities between our provinces is very glaring nowadays, that the rural ones are worse. But also if you go to the peri-urban, that is, you have your Kayelitas, you have your Kukuletu, very far from town. When they refer to Cape Town, they say, Ngapepa, Ekap, as if they are not in the Western Cape. So it is very clear, honorable members, that we have Seda, we have SIFA, who actually helps us to actually reach to more people than we would do as a department. This meeting has also taught us more lessons, that when we come here, our report must be very clear that this is the departmental report, and also makes referrals to our entities so that their reports are not mixed up with ours, so that we can be able to respond to what the departmental mandate is, as well as to those who are there to ensure that they have all the required skill to ensure that we deliver on our various mandates. I think the minister was able then to say, I never knew that when you speak of business, you still have to babysit some. I really wake up at night and babysit them because they've never been in business before. But the poor are actually piling up, and we better start now, pull some out of social grants and make them to graduate and become informal, then formal, so that we can all grow and have an inclusive growth. So, Chair, we are very honored by the patience that this committee has had, gone through our reports, asked as many questions as possible, and as we leave this platform, we will try to come together, re-look into your questions, how we responded, and then make things happen as you have advised us. We didn't see any derogative, we didn't see any, but all we saw was South Africans in a platform to make the life better. I thank you very much, Chair, as well as all the members. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Makapa. And let me also take this opportunity to thank the honorable members, the chairperson of SIFA, chairperson of Seda, CEO of Seda, CEO of SIFA, for coming and making a presentation and also responded to the questions from the honorable members. There was a proposal from Honorable Bridget that perhaps we should have regular updates. This should not be the last meeting. We need an update, for example, because our concern mainly as members is the fact that the money was only, you only have been able to give to 1.5 applicants. And there are a lot of other applicants who met the requirements. But unfortunately, the money was not there. So the SIFA chairperson and the acting DG were talking about the new window that might be opened. We need an update on that. That's why I think I'm happy with the proposal of Honorable Bridget that we need to have another meeting, also so that we can also get an update, because there was an issue of graduates that must assist the Spaza shops. To what extent is that process? We did not get an update really as to how far that process. I think the last on the 28th, there were even numbers of those graduates per province. How far is that process? We need an update with regard to that. There was also in that report of the 28th a list of other sectors that were going to be assisted. If I remember very well, I think the automotive sector, I saw something with regard to that, that they are going to be assisted. But we need to quantify, because we've quantified how much is going to go to the relief debt relief fund scheme, the 200 million, and then there's this one that now has been taken back to this scheme, which was this growth or business growth facility, which was 300 million. So we need to find out on automotive scheme how much is allocated, on bakeries, on tradesmen. There were a long list of sectors that were going to be assisted, on informal clothing, hairdressers, general hawkers, professional business services, small-scale manufacturers. So all those, we need an update as to how far is the department and its entities with regard to assisting, because on the 28th you were saying that you are still finalizing how you're going to assist these particular sectors. So those are the updates that we will be needing from time to time. We will interact with the chairperson of the portfolio committee and the whips, so that we decide as to when these update meetings are going to take place. So as I was indicating, we appreciate the update, but we will continue to have this kind of update so that we are able to also inform our constituencies with regard to the developments in how the department and its entities are assisting those that are affected by COVID-19. But also on behalf of the committee, we'll continue to express our condolences to those who died due to COVID-19. Honorable Jacobs has just indicated that one of the members in his constituency has also died due to COVID-19. So we'll continue to express. Maybe in future we need to have a moment of silence before we continue with our meetings, because this pandemic is still going to continue until we find a vaccine. Thank you very much, honorable members. As I indicated, we'll continue to have these kind of meetings so that we are updated on regular basis. So even if you had follow-up questions now that we did not have the opportunity to raise them, you will raise those questions in the next meeting. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Honorable Faiz, goodbye.